Do you know what girls typically like out of a guy?
Food.
Confidence.
What?
Food.
Food. Okay. Well, I mean, you're gonna bribe your girls. That's how you. That's how you get your girl. Then I don't know if that's the girl that you want.
What if you have money?
Financial security is a real thing
Yes, it is. That
when you're older.
that's a matter of
now.
life in the long term. Yeah, knowing who you are, being confident in yourself, and it's okay to be who you are. And if you know, and this is sort of a bigger conversation with all of us. You know, we talked about like how we kind of put each other down sometimes in our criticisms. We need to be accepting of each other for all of your social weirdness and your quirkiness, and the thing is, you can't even call it weirdness, right? We are all different. We all come from different situations, different backgrounds, and you have to be comfortable with who you are. And it might not be exactly like what everybody else around you is, but who cares, right? Embrace yourself and be okay with it. When you're like, I don't know if they're gonna like me for who I am, and you're afraid to speak up and you're afraid to actually be who you genuinely are, because if you're faking it, if you're just like saying things that you think they want to hear to fit in, then that's not being true to you, and people are gonna see through that. They are, because it's just not who you really are. When you're actually who you are, and yeah, you're weird, and yeah, I'm weird, and all of the people around you are weird, and that's totally fine. Accept those people for who they are, and the people you want to associate with will accept you for all of your weirdness as well. And that's what this team and that's what these moments are about, is that we love the quirkiness of each other. And even when you're around a girl, if you're weird, that actually makes you stand out a little bit more. But the thing that I find most women are attracted to is that you're comfortable in your own skin. You're comfortable being able to be a weird person, and you don't care about what other people think, right? So if you're concerned, I don't know what movie, I don't know, what do you want to see? You're like, no, I want to see Star Wars. And she's like, oh, I never watched Star Wars. Oh, you're gonna love it. It's great. I'll explain everything to you. Right? If you're just always like indecisive, not sure of what you want, how is a girl gonna want to be with you when you're not sure what you're doing? Right? That sort of quality of understanding who you are, and not that you have to be like this stiff board that's, you know, you have to be able to compromise, but at the same time, like, you just need to be yourself, and you need to be okay with being yourself. That's
Man, on a couple things.
yeah.
Is Leon taking notes, or is he?
He's copying word by word.
All right,
Word for word of everything.
I'm
he
literally
said.
recording it.
That will help with like all relationships, not just romantic ones. Listen to understand people. Don't listen just so you can say whatever it is you want to say. It's very obvious in a conversation when you are just waiting to respond, as opposed to actually responding to what someone else is telling you. Having people, like making people feel like they're heard, is really important to having a relationship, because relationships are two ways, and if you're only giving people what you want or what you want to talk about, then that's not a relationship. Thinking more about, I guess, the romantic side of things, like if you have a nice thought that pops into your head, say it. But the kinds of compliments that mean a lot more to people are the things that they choose. So like something that someone chooses to wear, right? Or a certain way they choose to have their hair cut, right? That means a lot more than just saying, oh, you're so beautiful, right? Because that's something they're born with. That's not something that they have accomplished, right? So find out what that person values, ask them what they value. There are a lot of really big questions that you can ask. Like for those of you who say, "Oh, I'm awkward," right? There are certain things that every single person has in common that just changes with the details depending on the context. Like everyone has things that they get excited about. Everyone has things that they are invested in. Like where do they spend their time? Like, oh, what do you do this weekend, right? Finding out how someone uses their free time is another way to find out what somebody values. And as soon as you find out what somebody values, then you know what motivates them. And if you know what motivates them, then you know what kinds of things to talk about. So it can be that easy. So coming up with certain questions, like a little toolbox of questions to have in your back pocket to pull out when you do meet somebody, like, oh, are you excited about anything right now? Like right there, you're gonna find out something that they care about. And that shows that you are interested in who they are as a person and not so much as to what they can do for you. There are different kinds of friendship, right? There are people that you're friends with because they're a fun time. There are people that you're friends with because they're useful to you. And then there are people that you're friends with just because they're really good people. And you're like, oh, I want to be around this kind of person because this kind of person will make my life better. And the thing about this as a team is that third kind of friendship, it takes time. Like you can't rush to being people's friends. Like you need to have experiences with them. You need to have conversations with them. Aristotle says a quote, it's like you can't really know a person until you eat salt with them, right? So like what really brings people together is going through things together, which is why those conditioning practices are actually so important. Not just to get in shape, but to go for all of you to go through that pain together. That is something that you can commiserate on. That is something that you will remember like 10 years from now at the alumni tournament. Remember how we used to go out in 10-degree weather and run on the track? Like that's the kind of shit that you remember. And that's the kind of shit that brings people together. So those are just some general things for nutrition. This is all something you should take notes on. Benji has the right idea. Stop eating candy. Processed sugar is useless to you. The only sugar you can really absorb is from fruit, and that's because it has the fiber that you need, that your body uses to help take in that sugar. Stop eating chips. Like, there are plenty of other snacks that you can have that are healthier options, like pretzels over chips every day. Who here eats rice?
We're Asian.
I figured I would have a fairly big audience for that one.
Brown
How
rice.
can you not eat?
Stop,
like purple rice.
Or yeah, so cut out rice, replace it with quinoa. It's a complex grain that has protein in it.
Wait, how do you spell quinoa?
Quinoa. So, like, there are a lot of really small things you can change to improve. For those of you that procrastinate, a practice that you can use is to make a list of all of the different things that you procrastinate on and come up with, like, so make basically a T-chart, make a list of the things on one column that you procrastinate on, and the other column, make a list of the emotions that come up when you procrastinate. You will likely find that there is a pattern, whether it is fear of failure, fear of pain. Boredom is a kind of pain, by the way, so there are things that make us say we are going to do this work later. We sacrifice our short-term, comfort for long-term gains, or we sacrifice, short-term pain for, well, I'm fucking this up. Point being, you know what I'm trying to say. So we find excuses to make ourselves comfortable in the short term, even though it might hurt us in the long term. So if you are aware of that, the next time you have one of those emotional reactions, like, oh, I'm anxious, or oh, I'm stressed, or oh, I'm a little bit afraid, or oh, this is boring, you need to come up with what's called an inflection plan. So like, as soon as you identify that you have that emotional reaction, there's something already in your head, this is what I do when I feel like this. And that'll help with getting out of bed for practice too, early in the morning or when it's cold. So habits, one last thing, I teach a class in this, like the neuroscience behind it. There's 3 main components to habits. There's a cue, there's a routine, and then there's a reward. So if you're trying to build new habits, you need to think about those 3 things very strategically. What is going to be the cue that sets you off into your routine, and what is the reward that's going to create that emotional energy, that craving, that will actually push you through that routine that you might not want to do. And one last thing, you can't get rid of old habits. You can only put new habits on top of them. And what you do is you focus on finding out what that cue is and then what that middle routine is. So you need to find a new routine to replace the old routine that gives you a similar kind of reward. And that is typically how you change habits. We can talk more about this later if you're interested.
You're all young enough